Everyone knows the story of the Killing Joke. The Joker escapes, Barbara Gordon gets paralyzed, Batman has a chuckle, and meandering social justice warriors write scathing think pieces.
I think we've got a problem.
Regardless of the faults of the 2016 adaptation, the criticism this year directed at the story is worth discussing if for no other reason than its ubiquity. I wanted to make this video because while there are actual problems with the Killing Joke, and especially its adaptation, the mere fact of Barbara Gordon's victimization is not one of them, and it is concerning to see people calling for narrative changes from a platform of feminism, while much more deserving targets of feminist criticism, films which actually promote negative beliefs about women, traipse on by relatively untouched. When writing about something like this, it is all too easy to spiral into a shouting match with the countless sophomores writing for their knockoff BuzzFeeds, and there is a proverbial banquet of poorly considered arguments into which to sink your teeth. I could talk about Will Brooker's various claims about the abject humiliation of Barbara Gordon as a female, compared with the apparently polite treatment of the male characters, claims which a quick comparison reveals are clearly a question of personal taste. I could talk about Donna Dickens's condemnation of the woman in the refrigerator trope as lazy shorthand in place of actual criticism, or the many writers who fall back on reciting "cripple the bitch" as evidence of the story's misogyny, falling prey to intentional fallacy of the highest order. Whenever something deemed controversial happens in a popular franchise, the same cycle repeats itself. The rape of Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones was famously met by feminist website The Mary Sue with the decision to stop writing about the series, but their reasoning for this was utterly fallacious and ultimately amounted to an "I don't like it" swathed in the clothes of academic writing. A later article from the site summarized their objection as relating to several problematic elements, particularly those involving the unnecessary brutalization of female characters on the show. Think about that for a second, specifically the word unnecessary. That word is important because it denotes an acceptable level of brutality that could occur. They are not complaining that female characters are the victims of violence, only that the violence is too extreme, a standard which could only be determined according to personal preference. It is also interesting that both Will Brooker with respect to The Killing Joke and the Mary Sue with respect to Game of Thrones were willing to write about these franchises before film adaptations were made. In the case of Game of Thrones, a far milder version than is described in the novels, but you know, reading is hard. While refusing to give attention to something you find to be personally offensive is perfectly reasonable, it is the insistence upon contriving a faux academic argument for its destruction which harms the discourse as a whole and leads to calls for censorship, and there is simply no good argument for censorship. For the most part, this situation is difficult to even define, because actual art criticism becomes entangled with the very loud views of the cult of outrage that has co-opted the feminist movement. This thesis finds proof with examples of the same kind of anger elsewhere, removed from the context of violence against women. The famous cases of Archie No. 600 and Captain America's recent Hydra debacle come to mind. But the example that most sticks out in my mind is the death of Peter Parker in Spider-Man 700, leading into the Superior Spider-Man arc of the series, which saw Dr. Octopus taking over the responsibility of being Spider-Man. The writers had used the death of a hero for the purposes of celebrating a villain. At the time, the move was so unpopular, it was met with vitriol. Writer Dan Slott received death threats from fans, and many people called for boycotts of the series. Does that sound at all familiar? One letter in particular, published in Superior No. 3, caught my eye. It reads, "What a parable for our fucked up world. You seriously want me to believe, embrace, and get excited over the fact that the villain who murdered the hero will make a better hero than the hero ever did? Can you not appreciate how wrong that is? The one great service of fiction is that we can at least imagine a world where humans get it right. With one issue of Spider-Man, you've taken even that away. You've tainted your entire mythos. The only thing that's superior is your ability to deceive yourselves into thinking how shocking or clever or controversial you are, when all you have done is violate the most fundamental rules of storytelling and undermine everything comics has ever stood for. You have my permission to print this if you feel fit. I won't be around to read it. Rob Walton." The outrage common between all of these stories is not anchored by any particular malice towards one group or another, but is founded rather on the basis that the heroes did not win, that the morality play readers expected did not come to pass. People are angry that their comfortable expectations and beliefs that the good guys will triumph in the end have been subverted, that the tablecloth has been ripped out from under them and their easy views about the world have been challenged. That is the root of the anger, not sexual violence and not patriarchal attitudes about women. So then, the question becomes, should subversive storytellers be subject to censorship? To which the answer must emphatically be no. Once the discussion becomes about censorship, it loses any authority it had because there is no academic argument for placing limitations upon the freedom of writers. By its very nature, censorship is always a doomed and anti-intellectual exercise, as it allows readers to avoid confrontations with darkness and violence by pretending they do not exist or have no consequences. And that, more than anything, is what this argument is about. Mass audiences seeking to censor what they view as morally repugnant. To them, I have this to say. It is not incumbent upon writers to write in a socially responsible manner, or one pleasing to you, and being offended by something does not give you any rights over its existence. On the contrary, the best writing is often provocative, for how it challenges us to confront evil and triumph over it. What makes The Killing Joke truly subversive is not simply the depth of the wounds inflicted upon the heroes, but also that the story manages to imagine a heinous villain as a complex individual and a victim himself. I'm going to leave you now with some words from Ray Bradbury in the coda of Fahrenheit 451. The irony with this novel is that many people think it is about a totalitarian authority censoring books, when in fact the censorship is a self-inflicted dumbing down of culture. Life imitates art indeed.
About 2 years ago, a letter arrived from a solemn young Vassar lady, telling me how much she enjoyed reading my experiment in space mythology, The Martian Chronicles. But, she added, wouldn't it be a good idea, this late in time, to rewrite the book, inserting more women's characters and roles? A few years before that, I got a certain amount of mail concerning the same Martian book, complaining that the blacks in the book were Uncle Toms, and why didn't I do them over? Along about then came a note from a Southern white suggesting that I was prejudiced in favor of the blacks and the entire story should be dropped. 2 weeks ago, my mountain of mail delivered forth a pipsqueak mouse of a letter from a well-known publishing house that wanted to reprint my story, The Foghorn, in a high school reader. In my story, I had described a lighthouse as having, late at night, an illumination coming from it that was a god light. Looking up at it from the viewpoint of any sea creature, one would have felt that one was in the presence. The editors had deleted god light and in the presence. Some 5 years back, the editors of yet another anthology for school readers put together a volume with some 400, count 'em, short stories in it. How do you cram 400 short stories by Twain, Irving, Poe, Maupassant, and Bierce into one book? Simplicity itself. Skin, debone, demarrow, scarify, melt, render down, and destroy. Every adjective that counted, every verb that moved, every metaphor that weighed more than a mosquito, out. Every simile that would have made a submoron's mouth twitch, gone. Any aside that explained the two-bit philosophy of a first-rate writer, lost. Every story, slenderized, starved, blue-penciled, leeched, and bled white, resembled every other story. Twain read like Poe, read like Shakespeare, read like Dostoevsky, read like, in the finale, Edgar Guest. Every word of more than 3 syllables had been razored. Every image that demanded so much as 1 instant's attention, shot dead. Do you begin to get the damned and incredible picture? How did I react to all of the above? By firing the whole lot. By sending rejection slips to each and every one. By ticketing the assembly of idiots to the far reaches of hell. The point is obvious. There is more than one way to burn a book, and the world is full of people running about with lit matches. Every minority, be it Baptist, Unitarian, Irish, Italian, octogenarian, Zen Buddhist, Zionist, Seventh-day Adventist, Women's Lib, Republican, Mattachine, Foursquare Gospel, feels it has the will, the right, the duty to douse the kerosene, light the fuse. Every dimwit editor who sees himself as the source of all dreary blancmange, plain porridge, unleavened literature, licks his guillotine, and eyes the neck of any author who dares speak above a whisper or write above a nursery rhyme. Fire Captain Beatty, in my novel Fahrenheit 451, described how the books were burned first by minorities, each ripping a page or a paragraph from this book, then that, until the day came when the books were empty and the mines shut and the libraries closed forever. "Shut the door, they're coming through the window. Shut the window, they're coming through the door," are the words to an old song. They fit my lifestyle with newly arriving butcher censors every month. Only 6 weeks ago I discovered that, over the years, some cubbyhole editors at Ballantine Books, fearful of contaminating the young, had, bit by bit, censored some 75 separate sections from the novel. Students reading the novel, which after all deals with censorship and book burning in the future, wrote to tell me of this exquisite irony. Judy Lynn Del Rey, one of the new Ballantine editors, is having the entire book reset and republished this summer, with all the dams and hells back in place. A final test for old Job 2 here. I sent a play, Leviathan 99, off to a university theater a month ago. My play is based on the Moby Dick mythology, dedicated to Melville, and concerns a rocket crew and a blind space captain who venture forth to encounter a great white comet and destroy the destroyer. My drama premieres as an opera in Paris this autumn, but for now, the university wrote back that they hardly dared to do my play. It had no women in it. And the ERA ladies on campus would descend with ball bats if the drama department even tried. Grinding my bicuspids into powder, I suggested that would mean, from now on, no more productions of Boys in the Band, no women, or The Women, no men, or counting heads, male and female, a good lot of Shakespeare that would never be seen again, especially if you count lines and find that all the good stuff went to the males. I wrote back, maybe they should do my play 1 week and the women the next. They probably thought I was joking, and I'm not sure that I wasn't. For it is a mad world, and it will get madder if we allow the minorities, be they dwarf or giant, orangutan or dolphin, nuclear head or water conversationalist, pro-computerologist or neo-Luddite, simpleton or sage, to interfere with aesthetics. The real world is the playing ground for each and every group to make or unmake laws. But the tip of the nose of my book, or stories, or poems, is where their rights end and my territorial imperatives begin, run, and rule. If Mormons do not like my plays, let them write their own. If the Irish hate my Dublin stories, let them rent typewriters. If teachers and grammar school editors find my jawbreaker sentences shatter their mushmilk teeth, let them eat stale cake dunked in weak tea of their own ungodly manufacture. If the Chicano intellectuals wish to recut my wonderful ice cream suit so it shapes zoot, may the belt unravel and the pants fall. For let's face it, digression is the soul of wit. Take philosophic asides away from Dante, Milton, or Hamlet's father's ghost, and what stays is dry bones. Lawrence Stern said it once, digressions, incontestably, are the sunshine, the life, the soul of reading. Take them out, and one cold eternal winter would reign in every page. Restore them to the writer. He steps forth like a bridegroom, bids them all hail, brings in variety, and forbids the appetite to fail. In sum, do not insult me with the beheadings, finger choppings, or the lung deflations you plan for my works. I need my head to shake or nod, my hand to wave or make into a fist, my lungs to shout or whisper with. I will not go gently onto a shelf de-gutted to become a non-book. All you umpires, back to the bleachers. Referees, hit the showers. It's my game. I pitch, I hit, I catch, I run the bases. At sunset, I've won or lost. At sunrise, I'm out again, giving it the old try. And no one can help me. Not even you.